think we're all a bit feeling a bit loopy at the moment, given the weekend and all that stuff. So, shall we get into it?
Let's do it.
All right. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to number 58. It is episode 58 of the Board Game Gateway podcast. Okay. We're back on the numbering system. I double-checked all my numbers. I looked at all the interviews, all the podcasts that we've done, and we are finally back on our regular scheduled programming, or at least we're going to try to anyway. We're going to be aiming for about once a fortnight. My name is Neeber, and my co-host for this evening is Mr. Damien. Hello, sir.
Hi.
If this is your first time listening to the Board Game Gateway podcast, we are your entryway into the world of board gaming, tabletop gaming, and fun times. And on today's episode, we're going to be having a chat about the estates. We're going to be having a quick chat about a bit of a preview on Leviathan Wilds. Mm-hmm. And then we're going to be having a chat about our featured games today, Star Tycoon and 51st State. No gateway game today, unfortunately. There's a reason for that. Mainly because let's get to that right now. We are right off the back of our second ever game day, B3GD Winter 2024, and Board Game Gateway's game day. There you go. There's the merch. Thank you, Georgie, for all the merch. And we're just off the back of the game day. So we're not going to be talking about that specifically at the moment. We're going to save that for next episode. And we're going to hopefully have a special guest in that episode as well. So look out for that one.
Yeah, there's a lot to debrief from that. All of it really, really good. We will say all of it was such an amazing day. But two things. One, we definitely want Ralph here as well.
Yes, we want to talk about it with Ralph.
And I think I also need a chance just to breathe and remember things, because it was very, very much a blur at this point in time.
It was so much of a blur. We did get a few games played today, which was great. Towards the end, but we need to get and we are going to be doing another one as well. We have already announced it to the people that were there, but we are going to be doing another one in the beginning of 2025. So that's very exciting. We'll announce more stuff about that as we get closer to the date. But the reason why we actually want to talk about one of the games that we've been playing first is it's a bit of the new hotness. It's currently hitting the shelves. It's the cooperative, how would you describe it, Damon? Is it cooperative tower building, tower scaling game?
So I just want to say quickly.
Leviathan Wilds. Let's have a chat about it.
I think we're going to do a deeper dive into this one, because I've only had a couple games of it. Mm-hmm. I know you haven't played it yet.
No, I have not.
Ralph is keen to play it. And I'll just give like a brief overview about it. So Leviathan Wilds is a co-op game where it's almost what was that PlayStation game where you actually have to climb giants?
Shadows of the Colossus.
Shadows of the Colossus, yes. It's very reminiscent to that. Not the art style. The art style is super colorful, super vibrant, and that's actually one of the things that really attracted me to it. Was the art style, and is just fantastic. But it is very Shadow of the Colossus-esque in that you are basically representing this person or this climber, and you want to climb this Leviathan to then break crystals off it. And essentially the premise of the game is that these Leviathans have become infected, and the only way you can heal them is by knocking off these crystals. Mechanically, what the game actually is, it's a hand management game. So you basically take your climber and your climber's skill sets, you smash that together, creates a 10 card deck, and on your turn you'll draw 3 cards. One of those cards is used for action points, and your action points will allow you to do certain actions, mostly either climbing or gliding down a particular Leviathan. There are a ton of different mechanics in this game. I'm not going to give them all away now. I'm going to save it for our deep dive. But what I will say is, as far as co-op hand management games that are super vibrant, really easy to play, give you a ton of options, it's one of the best I've played in a very, very long time.
Okay, I'm looking forward. I actually am looking forward to playing it. Look, I know I get a rap on this podcast, and people have said you're the guy who doesn't really like Spirit Island, and for me, I've always been a very big. It's not that I don't like Spirit Island. I actually really respect Spirit Island. I'm just not I'm not a co-op gamer at heart. That's just how I've always been. And it's games like why I really do like Pandemic, but it gets old, which is why I'm actually super wanting to play the Pandemic Legacy, because I need consequences, I need stuff. But Leviathan Wilds, I've heard a lot of things about how it's not super laid back, but laid back enough that it's kind of like you're trying to just work your hand to do things on this Leviathan, i.e. like Shadows
Yeah.
of the Colossus,
Yeah.
but you're trying not to get in each other's way at the same
Yeah.
point in time, and so there's a whole bunch of things that are going on. Like I need to help to get up into a specific area.
Yeah.
I may need a person to help me boost, etc. That kind of stuff.
And it's more than, and the other side of it as well is that much like in Shadows of the Colossus, the Leviathan does fight back. So as you begin progressing through the game, there are actions that it will take, which then can impact you directly, can impact both you and other people on the map. It can potentially only impact the other person, and it's quite clever the way all of this is managed. But again, we are going to dig into that further in a future episode. I really want to play it more. I've only played 2 of the climbers, and and it isn't a case that every climber has an ability. No, you literally pick a climber and any one of the, I believe it's 8 abilities.
Yeah.
And so there's also heaps of replayability in this as well. The reason I wanted to mention it here is because at the time of this recording, I think there's about 48 hours left in the reprint Kickstarter.
We will hopefully have this out. So if you're listening to it on Thursday when this comes out, it's like the last day.
Yeah.
You've got to, if it sounds like something you want to check out, go to Kickstarter.
It's actually on GameFound.
On GameFound.
I just want to say I am absolutely backing it.
Put $1 in on the pledge manager if you're unsure.
Throw $1 on.
And then you can get part of it later.
But yeah, look for me, it was a no-brainer. Anything that in a co-op game that has this much depth that I can put in front of my kids, and they are more than happy to play, was a winner for me. So I was sold. But look, we will talk about it more in a future pod. So yes.
All right, perfect. Okay, well, the next game that we'd like to have a chat about, and we actually have a little bit of more of a chat, in-depth chat, is a game called from 2016, which is called The Estates. This is a cutesy-looking auction game that is actually at its core one of the meanest auction games I've played in a long time. We had a chance to play this at B3GD, and the reason why I wanted to talk about it is because Damien has been talking this one up for me a long time, and he knows me, and he knows what sorts of games I'm in. He's like, dude, you've got to play The Estates because it would be right up your alley. And I've got to say, right off the get-go, boy, howdy was it. Was I right with 2016?
No, sorry,
I think I was right with 2016.
I'm checking something else.
You're checking. Checking the other game. That's
right.
Anyway, very without going out too much into boring what this game is. At its core, it is an auction game where we are auctioning off buildings and we're creating skyscrapers in basically 3 separate streets in this game. This game is brutal for 2 reasons. One, you can go into negative points, and you very easily will go into negative points because there is a lot of hate picking and hate bidding in this game. The other thing that makes this game mean is it is a once auction. So what that means is that in terms of your auction, it doesn't keep going around. The person who picks the thing that we're auctioning off, they get last bid, and everyone else gets one shot at getting it. So the person to the left of the player who picked the building that we're auctioning off, they get one shot, and if someone outbids them, too bad. You have to wait for the next round to go. These sorts of games are great for people who love to get in each other's way. So at its core, the way that the control over these streets work, which is that the streets have 4 buildings that need to be completed, 4 or 5 that need 4 buildings that need to be completed at its core. And to complete a building, you have to build a foundation level, and then at some point you have to put a roof on that building to signify that it is winning. Here's where the rub comes into it, which is the person who controls the building is the person who has the top number of that building. So the cubes come in 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Very simple. Those are the numbers. The lowest number, the foundation number, every number above it must be lower. So if I put a 5 on the bottom, a 4, 3, or 2, or 1 can go on top of it, so on and so forth. But there's nothing stopping someone putting a 1 directly on top of the 6, on top of the 5, and just going, you know what, no one else can put anything to this building. I'm going to be in control of the building. Now, that sounds good. You're like, well, that's good. That's 6 points, No, because the only way that it's worth positive points is if your street gets completed. And your street gets completed by having 4 completed buildings in it. So a completed building must have a roof on it. Now, there are also some buildings as well that are built on sand pits, essentially, so you can only have 1 cube in it. But what it ends up doing is it's a double-edged sword because you're like going, hey, sweet, I'm going to get points if this completes. Yes, but you've now told everyone that you're committed to this street at least for one building and for however many points. So currently it's worth negative points until that row is completed. And at its core, that's the whole game. We also have the other thing I should mention is that the economy is a closed economy. So that means everyone starts with $12, $12 million, and all of your increments are in $1 million. And when the auction finishes, the auctioneer has two choices. They are either allowed to accept your bid and take your money and allow you to build whatever it is, or they can go, you know what? I don't think that bid was good enough, and I'm actually going to pay you the money that you were going to pay me, and I'm going to build it for myself. Yeah. It becomes very important because in this game, the cubes, the colors of the cubes, there are 6 of them. The very first person to build a color of that cube, they now become the CEO of that color for the rest of the game. And so that means people know, well, hey guys, I'm going to auction off this number 2 right now. And Damo is on not a lot of money right now because he stupidly bid very high on something on the last round. So that means I can win this auction very easily, take Damo's cube and put him on negative points in somewhere he really doesn't want to get. And this is where the game starts to really turn into the mean game we were talking about. I haven't even talked about the other things that you can auction off, such as the mayor's hat, which doubles the points, positive or negative. So people can go, you know what, stuff it. That row's now worth double negative points. Stuff you, right? Yeah. Or the fact that you can, auction off these barriers which extend the street. So what was once a completed row is now needs an extra 3 buildings. Yeah. Or there's not many more things to talk about other than Damo. This game, you were right. It is super mean, but my God, we were laughing at so much during this game.
Yeah, my favorite thing in the game is to watch someone clearly want something, and everyone knows they want it, but because they're to the right of the person who
has the most money,
or actually the person who started the auction,
and
they went low, and the person who then started the auction went, no, that's far too low.
That's
now it's going to cost you, and then to watch them pay them to place a cube that you know that person wanted in the most ridiculous spot ever, and you go, well, that's absolutely going to be negative points now. And then you're just staring going, how do I get myself out of this hole? It's a game where I have played it, and a winner has been on negative 8 points, and they won the game because no streets got finished.
Yeah.
So all the cubes went out, and nothing got finished because we were just obnoxiously mean to each other. I've played a game where there was just this huge disparity in points because one of the last plays was that someone put the mayor's hat out, and then the very last play, someone else, the person who needed to win this roof, they ran out of money and they couldn't afford the roof. They couldn't outbid someone. So quite literally, they went from a winning position to coming last by a long, long way.
Was that Stu?
No, in this case it wasn't.
No, our friend Stu, he basically got handed the most expensive building on the first completed building, and we all went, right, well, that street's never getting finished.
That was it. And that's the sort of game that it is. Now, I will say, so first of all, it was 2018, not 2016.
Close.
And it's not a game for everyone.
No, it's really not.
It is the auction game. In terms of like pure mechanics, what makes it really interesting is it's that thing where you can go around the table and everyone has one auction, and it's not the only game to do that.
So James and I just played Container at PlayCon.
Yeah.
And it does the exact same
That's
thing.
right. But
and I have to admit, I love that mechanic.
Yeah.
It's like, no, sorry guys, you can't just screw me over. If I've got the money, sorry.
That's right, yeah. Yeah, and what Nee means by that is that the actual person who started the auction can then purchase for the amount that was auctioned for.
Yeah.
Goa does it as well. It's really funny though. There was a period sort of like in the I think around sort of the early 2010s sort of thing, a little bit later. Well, that was a pretty common mechanic, and we don't see it as often these days.
It is a pretty mean mechanic.
It is very mean though.
Because it requires, I love how you said in the estates rulebook, it's like you're allowed to talk about what the bid that would be accepted.
Yeah.
And so like we'd start the auction and it'd be like, well, I certainly wouldn't accept it for 5 money,
Yeah.
but maybe 6 money.
Maybe
And then the
6.
bid got around. It's like, yeah, okay, I bid 6 money. No, that's way too low. That's way too low a bid. I'm going to buy that for 6 money.
And the last thing to say is that yes, it is a closed economy, but you still can manipulate it because you can embezzle your own money.
I love that theme of the game.
Your turn. And granted, and like for every embezzled dollar or $1 million again, because the denominations are in per million that you embezzle. Yes, it's worth a point at the end of the game.
But it's $1 out of the economy.
It's $1 out of the economy, and that's huge.
Well, we played a 5-player game, so that was 60. Like that's 60 million or 60 units of currency, right?
I'm pretty sure 5 is the max player count as well.
Yeah, so we were playing it at max, right?
Yeah.
But like if you're playing it at 4, that's 48 units.
Yeah.
That's like you take 1 out of it, and it can mean the difference between a 6 or a 7 and these things. And I will agree with you. Like this game, I can see is definitely not for everyone because it is mean. It is that game of like, why did you put that there? Because I thought it was funny. Yeah. Well, that's mean. It's like, yeah, it kind of is, but that's kind of the game. But so long as everyone goes into the game knowing that it's a bit mean.
Yeah, look, there was one point. There was one point where Stu looked at me and he had put a bid in, and he wanted that cube, but he had no money. And I looked at him and said, "That's not enough." And he goes, "I know that's not enough. And I know where that cube's going to."
Yeah.
And I just outbid him. And it was funny. So it was our friend James. He was on his side of the auction, and he's looked at me. He goes, "I know where you're going to put that cube. So I'm not even going to give you the money for it. You can give me the money for it."
Yeah.
I paid him money and then just put the cube in the most ridiculous spot, just so.
But I remember you did that as well. But then James was like, "Why did you put that there?" Because it was funny. Yeah. And then there was one moment where James was convinced I was going to bid on a cube. So convinced I was going to do it. I just went, "No, I'm not going to bid on that." He's like, "Why would you not bid on that?" Because I don't care. And he's like, "But why would you not bid on it?" Because I'm like, well, and it ended up it didn't really matter at the end of the game. Like I was on -8, and Stu was on like -28 or -30 or something ridiculous. Yeah. But it was like, again, it was a great game. It's one of those. It's like the half-size boxes, so it's a lot of game for what you get put into it. I do love that not every cube. So there's 6 colors with 6 cubes, right? Yeah. So 6 through 1. Not every cube is in play, and you can't pick any cube. You have to pick from the outsides in of this stack of cubes.
Yeah.
And that's actually a really good mechanic because not everything's always in play, so it changes up what is going to come out, when they're going to come out, what's actually got value, what doesn't have value. But at its core, this is actually a very fun game. It took only about 45 minutes to an hour, so it's actually got a decent chunk to it, but it is mean. It can be one of those games where if you get through an hour and you feel like you've just been absolutely hammered on for an hour, that could potentially happen.
I will say, like, if you're the type of gamer that likes to sit there and just focus on your own stuff, you don't like anyone messing with your own stuff, and look, don't get me wrong, that's awesome. There are times that I really like. There are a lot of games like that I like. The Estates is not that. The Estates like thrives with table talk and stuff like that. It definitely fits our group. It's like the Estates is, albeit very, very different games. If you're someone who likes coup, who likes just the sort of games that produce a ton of table talk, this is absolutely.
This was all table. This is just all table talk. But that's why it's so good.
And it's just slinging, just slinging rubbish at each other. It's brilliant. But even though yes, I'm saying like it's all about table talk, it's all about just slinging rubbish at each other. The game itself is absolutely solid.
Yeah. At its core, it's very solid.
It's very, very solid. It makes a lot of sense. It's a tiny rule set, ton of game.
Yeah.
With high interaction. Brilliant. I absolutely love that.
Yeah, look, we recommend it as a podcast, as a group. We do give it the good old thumbs up. We are actually trying to do something at the moment with the podcast. We are trying to come up with a rating system of how we would like to review games. We're not a review channel. However, we do think it is important for you at home to kind of understand where we feel these games are.
Yep.
So we are looking for a, like, I don't want to, like a Board Game Gateway recommends some variation. Like, who knows? Maybe like a Nat 20 or something. Maybe something dice related because our logo. But yeah, that doesn't work because we have a 6-sided dice on a 20-sided dice. Anyway, point being, We give it a big recommend.
Yep.
We think it's really great. It is not for everyone, but if you are someone who likes to mess with your friends and have high interactivity with your games, this is absolutely one
I
for you.
will say though is that if anyone out there is looking for a really interesting and fun auction game that's not as mean, can be a little bit mean, but certainly not as mean as the Estates, but still has a brilliant auction mechanism, is maybe insular is the wrong word, because it certainly isn't insular, but it's more about I need to focus on my thing. But there's still a little bit of worrying about what other people are doing. Check out Ra. We've spoken about Ra on this podcast before.
You did a feature on it.
It still has its own unique auction mechanic. It is different, but at the same time, at its core, it still is an auction game. You are trying to auction for things to improve your board state, to improve your point score. Or Medici. Medici is another one. Again, both of those games by Brian Knizia. In my opinion, the master of auction games. But both Ra and Medici, they give you interesting variations on the auction mechanic. But again, neither of them are the Estate. The Estate is very much a I'm going to get a few mates around. We're going to have a bit of fun, and we're going to see how far we can go before
we shaft each other.
Yeah, before we shaft each other, basically.
Right. Well, it gives it a big thumbs up. And so that was the Estates. And so we are going to, again, highly recommended. So look, let's go from the world of auction games, and we're going to shift course now to the world of Tableau building games. So for those of you who don't know, Tableau building refers to a mechanic in which you have essentially not pioneered by, but the idea of like having some sort of normally it's a card game of some description, and it will have cards, items, resources in front of you, and generally that tableau will be things that will gain you money or resources or get points, etc. Good examples of this are Seven Wonders is one, Wingspan is another good one, and these two games that we are going to be referring to tonight, which is the first game is Star Tycoon. This is designed by Warp Core Games and is published by Good Games Publishing here in Australia, and we are going to be having a chat by that. I should read out the designers, Peter and Alkira Sanderson. So we've talked about this game before because we actually talked about Star Citizen about a year ago when I had a chance to play this. Sorry, not Star Citizen, Star Tycoon. Sorry, I've got, as you can see, I'm actually sidestep. I'm super mad about two things. Space games. It's like I love Star Wars, anything sci-fi, and tycoon games. Railroad Tycoon and Roller Coaster Tycoon are two of my all-time favorite management games. So when Star Tycoon, and I've been playing, and then I know I said Star Citizen, but I've been playing a crap ton of that on my computer, and I've currently got a bit lost in the Star Citizen world as well. Anyway, back on point being, Star Tycoon, we talked about this because I had a chance to play it at Board Game Barbecue, Board Game Barbecue game day about 12 months ago, 18 months ago now.
It was about a year ago.
It was last year. It was in the middle of last year, so over 12 months ago. And finally, the Kickstarter then, at the time, I said that I wouldn't back the Kickstarter. However, we've been given a copy to actually have a look and have a review and see if any changes have happened. And we thought, let's take the opportunity to play it. Now, in that time, I got to play it some more, and I've also introduced Ralph and Damien to this one as well. So Damien and I can have a chat about it. At its core, Star Tycoon is a tableau builder game in which you are a space corporation, a star corporation as you were, and we are colonizing or terraforming a whole bunch of different systems out there and all the planets on those systems to get points and things like that. On your turn, basically you get given 3 actions, and you are allowed to do those 3 actions, 6 different actions 3 times, and in which order you turn to do it is up to you. Those actions are: you can build, you can essentially terraform planets in systems by buying cards and whatnot. You can find more systems, go exploring and find more systems and adding those systems to your tableau. You can only add a certain amount of planets to a system. So each system says, hey, you can only have 1 or 2 or 3 planets on here, so you need to go find them. You can upgrade those system cards by, there are 3 different levels of, upgrades. They can be things that help your production, things that give you, pirate dens and things that allow you to interact with the other players, as well as some comma rays and things like that, as well as the big point scorers, which are your mega construction projects. So those are things like the Garden of Eden in space, essentially, those kind of things. And you're trying to look for ways of being able to put these onto specific systems, because each system requires you to get certain amount of icons and things like that into the building. If you can do that, points are coming your way. Congratulations. The big thing about this building, though, is that there's the tycoon side of it, which is in the middle of the board, there is essentially a stock market of these goods. You and your friends there are 6 different goods, and with those 6 different goods, there's also money that you can do. And essentially throughout the game, the money and the resources, depending on how you trade them, will go up or down in value. So if I, say you want to buy 3, plant resources, that will cost me, it only cost me 2 money at this time. Fantastic. Now I'd take it. Now the next time it'll be 2 money for 2 plant resources. So the next place, so a little bit more efficient. So you're trying to pick your time to buy these resources and sell these resources for money, transferring them all around. But the catch is you do only get 3 turns per round, and there are 3 rounds per phase of the game, if you will, before. So you get 4 production rounds in a game. And so it basically goes production, 3 actions, 3 actions, 3 actions, more production, so on and so forth. After a round of, essentially after 12 rounds of the game ends, and we then all take up our money. That's now, I haven't talked anything about the artwork. I want to talk about, a couple of things about this game, which is, I will say from remembering it from the last 12 months, I don't feel like anything really changed in that time. I don't really feel like, I remember speaking to a few people who they were talking about, the designer's probably going to try and change some few things. I don't really feel like they changed too much. I think the game at its core was pretty locked in. And I've got to say, I like the artwork. I like the theme of this game, but I'm not 100% sure whether or not I can recommend this game still to anyone at this particular point. Now, we don't like to be negative on this podcast, but I do feel like it's important to give you my actual feelings on this game. But I've talked about it before. Damo, let's go to you.
Yeah.
Look, you played this game for the first time. It is here. So if you want to see what the sort of the artwork is, it is here on the table. But what did you think of it after your initial play and when we had our discussions and going through it all that?
Yeah, I will say first of all, thank you to Good Games Publishing for providing the game. Again, just want to reiterate, this is a review copy, so we didn't purchase this with our own money. So please take everything we say with a grain of salt.
They didn't give us any caveats on what we were allowed to say, but again, as you said, take that with a grain of salt.
Ultimately, this is a Tableau builder set collection game. So, and it's going to be weird that I'm going to compare it to it, but honestly, Splendor. It felt in many ways like Splendor. In that, and I mean, granted, yes, we were spending resources to get things, again, just like Splendor, and we're building up our Tableau, and our Tableau improves our current board state. Mostly with this game, your Tableau is doing one of 2 things. It's either gaining you more resources during your income phase or getting you points. The pirate dens,
we barely saw any
during our game, and I went through the cards and there really weren't that many in there.
The pirate den's kind of a way to say, hey, instead of getting resources, you can spend your pirate tokens, which generally are ones you can't get rid of.
Yeah.
But you can go to the black market and steal goods from other players and things like that.
I will say, I love the artwork in this game. I think it is beautiful.
Actually, I do think they've done a really good job in terms of.
However, I didn't like the icons. I struggled to see the icons. Look, this could very much just be a me thing. I'm getting old. Eyes don't work as well as they used to. But I did struggle with the icons on the cards. There was a lot of leaning over the table. Not because they were necessarily too small, but because I felt the icons and their colors, they were very, very close to others. So I often was purchasing a card and then realizing I was paying with the wrong resources and had to put the card back. And the result of that meant that I was often restarting my turn, which then led to one of the other concerns I had with the game. That's downtime.
Oh, yeah.
We played it at 3. It took
An
about
hour and 20.
an hour and 20. And
Actually, no, it was closer to 2 hours. Actually, it was close to
because we had to teach as well.
Yeah.
So let's say we'll say it was
an
almost
hour and 30 to around 40.
We'll say it was over an hour and a half with the teach. And don't get me wrong, the game itself, there's the teach itself doesn't take very long. It's quite a straightforward game. But the problem I had was because I was constantly struggling to read the board state, it meant that my turns were taking a long time. And I know I wasn't the only one, particularly once you get to the later rounds where you have so many resources in front of you and you have options. You just sit there, you kind of sit there just staring at the board state for a long time. So, and again, I will keep coming back to games like Splendor. Splendor's super snappy. It's like you can see the board state really, really quickly. I'm not going to sit here and say that they're attempting to be like games like Splendor, but the point I'm making is that if I'm looking at a game and getting vibes of another game with it, I kind of want it to
match it.
Not necessarily match it, but my expectation is, well, this feels like a 45-minute game, and it wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, I want to mention one thing. So the last time we spoke about this game, I mentioned my biggest problem was the downtime. Now, I played it at 4 originally, and that game took about 2 hours. And so I can hear some of the people in the comments section and all those people going, yeah, but other games have downtime too. And that's true. Games do have downtime. The problem with this game that we have, which is that one of the core mechanics of this game is the central development market. You can only, because remember, you have 3 actions per turn. So I have 3 actions, then Damo would have actions, then Ralph would have 3 actions. And what ended up happening was downtime is not, I like downtime. I've actually played games like Brass and other things where you actually spend a lot of time sitting there thinking about what you're going to do. The problem with the main problem that I ran into with this game is I cannot pre-plan anything in this game because production happens 4 times a game. So you don't think about, well, I can't activate production. There is a move that allows you to do on your OmniForge, which is 2 pieces of production, but that's one hearsay. But the main market of this system, where you have the systems, the developments for those systems, and the upgrades, that thing completely changes at the time of everyone purchasing it. And again, the market, the actual stock market, will not be the same when it changes, because you are allowed to go to the stock market and do 2 trades there on your turn. So for one stock market action, I can do 2 trades. So the moment that I'm sitting there going, I'm sitting here looking at what Damien's doing, and I'm thinking about my plan, going, oh, I could do this because I've got enough, and then I could trade that for that. But the problem is that I can't think about any of the calculations on my turn, on my downturn, because the moment that Damien makes a trade, he immediately changes the variables of what this is worth, and then I can't make that calculation anymore. I have to restart all over again. So what we found we were doing was we would just go, you know what? I got to say it. We were playing this game, and in our downtime, we were playing Azul on Board Game Arena because we couldn't pre-plan.
Yeah.
And that's my biggest issue, which is I think this game is solo could be really good, because if it's just you versus the game and then it just changes again and then it's just you and you get to do all the calculations. This is something I mentioned last time. When it is your turn, it's great because you're like, okay, I've got these tokens. I'm going to trade the market. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to buy that. I can't buy a second one of that. Or I can because my unique faction. All right. And so you're doing all of this and you're like, yes, great, bang, bang. Like efficiency, boom, boom. Yes, this is great. Big turn. Great, big points. Moving on. Damien, it's your turn. Okay, now I've got to switch off. And that moment there, which is that I said this last time, when I'm playing the game, it's great. But the downtime, you just cannot. We weren't engaged because there was no point in being engaged because on your turn, the state was completely different anyway. So
I think the only time I truly became engaged with particularly what you were doing was you bought one of the goal cards, and I've forgotten what they're called. Where basically it says that you get bonus points if you have a certain number of
the corporation
cards. Thank you. I had already started to bank on this particular type of symbol, and then Nee bought the corporation card
pretty early. It was pretty early.
But basically, the cards kept coming up in favor of me, and I was able to buy the cards that matched the symbol. Now, having a market that that doesn't rotate a great deal, and so you're dependent on what gets drawn off the deck, I'm okay with that. There is a mechanic in here which allows you to scrap the cards and refresh the market, but if I remember right, that consumed one of your actions. So it's not, you're actually not incentivized to do that. One thing Ralph mentioned during our play was that it'd be great if we get like a token per round that you could flip, which would allow you to rotate a market, like just scrap all the cards and redraw for free. Something like that, something to give you options, because I know so another thing worth mentioning in the game is that we all start with a variable ability, so a variable corporation, and all it is, it's a minor tweak. It's a minor tweak. It's an ability that breaks one of the rules. Like for instance, mine was, instead of doing 2 trades in the market, I could do 3. All I really was doing that for was just to stuff up the market.
Yeah.
Like, don't get me wrong, and that's a legitimate way to play, but it wasn't benefiting anyone really in the end. It was just me messing around with stuff. But I know, but Ralph's one, and I'll just go back to what I was saying, was that his one was all about piracy.
And barely anything
around piracy came up. And he said that his issue was that he felt like he was stuck going down this path. He was incentivized to go down a path which led him nowhere. And it's tough, and it's tough to sit at a table for that long to feel like that you're just spinning wheels. Now, look, we've been super negative on this. One thing I will say, the actual Tableau building part, I thought was brilliant.
Yeah, the way that they actually incorporate mechanics.
The way the mechanic is incorporated. So you basically have to start with a system, and you're incentivized to purchase a system, and every system almost has mini goals on it.
Yeah.
And it will say, okay, so you want to get anywhere from 2 to 4 different types of planets that have these symbols in order to produce and get maximum points for these planets at the end of the game. I thought that was brilliant, because it gives you
something to actually work for.
To work for. That's right. It gives you a target, and you go, okay, well, look, I know I've got this many turns left, this many actions left. There's no point in me getting more planets, because I'm not going to be able to fulfill essentially all these contracts. Essentially, it's what it is. It's contract fulfillment.
Yeah, it's essentially what it is. Yeah.
And
the system needs this production. Get on.
That's right. And so I really like that part, because it provided focus to the game. What I will say otherwise is that the market, I didn't get. The market felt very restrictive, not because it's a shifting market. Like I was saying, one of my favorite games, Clans of Caledonia, has a shifting market, but you can mess with that market almost freely on your turn. This, you can only increment it once for a particular type of resource.
You can't manipulate it twice for a single resource.
And so if I wanted to purchase more of that resource, I just can't. And it's like, well,
there must have been balancing or testing reasons for that, but at the same point in time, it really did restrict what you were able to do, and probably that's what they were aiming for. But I did feel the same way that you felt, which is that the market has the ability to potentially go 5 up either side. So 5 gold for one of this resource, or 5 of this resource for 1 gold, but it never made it past 3.
No.
On our turn, because it was only 1, the minute that it hit a 1 for 3, someone immediately went, well, I'm taking that immediately. They do have, once every production round, they have an event card that comes up, but those event cards really didn't do much for our game. Like, I would rather the event cards had an event, but also reset the market to a really wildly shifting state, or giving that, because for me, a tycoon game is all about wheeling and dealing, getting the resources, and then shifting the market in a way that's best. Even if it was like, rather than, I get it, supply and demand, but there's some things like I said, when I'm playing the game, I think it was great. That's the thing I want to stress to people. When I'm playing it, but in the downtime, I'm just sitting here going, okay, I just got to wait for my turn. And if you've got some AP-stricken players, God help you, it will take a long time.
Yeah.
I do want to say, solo mode. Yes, solo mode. Great. I actually did try out the solo mode. I know I said I hadn't at the beginning, but I was trying to wait until the end. But I've tried it out once. I was always engaged. It was fine. It was actually a really decent, solid Tableau builder. Great. But I really like, me personally, I'm not a solo gamer. I wanted to give it a go because I'm like, I was the one who was so keen. But also, when you put the word tycoon in a game, I want to feel like a tycoon, and the stock market didn't make me feel like that. So,
my final word on this is, I feel like it's a game. I feel like in here there is a really good game. I really do. But I feel like the game is doing too much.
I feel like I know that they're trying to make you do 3 actions so that you can, trade and immediately upgrade. But I do think it should be a 1 for 1. Your turn, then your turn, then your turn. And that would have to change some core mechanics of like 1 action, 1 action, 1 action, 1 action. Yeah. That would have to change some core things about how the actual market, the actual planet market works. But look, I'm just a guy. I'm just a guy with a camera and a microphone.
Yeah.
Look, we can't recommend Star Tycoon, unfortunately, unless you're after a really good the solo mode. I can recommend it for. But if you're a type of person who actually does like to sit down, crunch, and willing to just have a chill evening, maybe it is for you. But we said for the artwork, the actual Tableau builder is really good. We really liked a lot of these things of the game, but when it just comes to the amount of time that we've got to play games at the moment, it's just not going to make it off the shelf.
Yeah, I have to agree. Look, Star Tycoon, it's fine. If you want to try it out, if you want to try a Tableau builder with Splendor-esque elements in there and a market mechanic, the market mechanic, again, it's not unique. There are other games that do this. Look, give it a go. It might be a game for you. For us, I don't think. I know. Look, I'm going to say for me, it was not a game for me.
I really gave it another red hot crack, and I can say it's not for me either. I respect I respect the design. I can see what they're trying to go for here, but at its core, it's just not for us at the moment. Anyway, but a game that is for us. I'm gonna just talk. We're gonna do this little segue here because
I'm gonna say quickly. I asked Nee what he thought of this game, and he said, I'm going to save it for the pod. So whatever is about to be said is going to be a shock to me too.
So we are going to be shifting from one Tableau builder to the other. We're going to shift it back. And we had a bit of a chat about this in a previous episode when Damo was actually relatively new to the podcast. But he decided, we were talking Tableau builders with Star Tycoon, and he decided, hey, what about 51st State? Would you like to try that game again? And would you like to try it? And I said, absolutely. You've talked it up. You said it's his son's favorite game, one of his favorite games. And if you like Tableau builders a la Wingspan, this one may be one of your things. Now, I will be upfront. I'm not a huge Wingspan fan. Wormspan I found is really good. Wingspan, I liked it. It was fine. It's a good solid 6 out of 10 for me. But I do love Tableau builders, and I do love being able to trade things for things. And then Damo came up to me with 51st State. So, Damo, let's give the very quick refresher. We're not going to go fully into everything because if you want to know more about 51st State, you need to go and check out one of our previous podcast episodes.
I think quickly, like we'll just talk about just briefly, like what is a Tableau builder. So very, very quickly, and so what were some of the other games that are available? So 51st State is absolutely one that I've recommended. One of the Tableau builder that I recommended everyone check out. I was lucky enough to teach it to Nee. And it's still my most played game on BGA. And that is Race for the Galaxy.
I've still yet to beat him. I'm 0-18. I'm 0-18 in this game, guys. I will report when we get this win.
Look, I would argue it's the greatest Tableau builder ever made, but I'm an old fuddy-duddy, and there may be others out there that will basically tickle your fancy. But check them out. 51st State, on the other hand, is... For anyone out there who's played Wingspan, you're going to hear a lot about 51st State.
It's basic. I wouldn't be surprised if 51st State or Wingspan took a lot of design.
Yes, that's right. So 51st State predates Wingspan. 51st State came out in 2016. Well, at least the master set did. The original set, I am just going to check it out very, very quickly, came out in 2010.
So it's an old design.
It's an older design.
Which is good.
So it comes in 3 flavors. If you can find the original, brilliant. What we have here, this is the master set. So the master set had, up until recently, every single expansion in it. And as you can see, it's a regular sized box, which is another thing, absolutely one thing I love about it. It's got a bunch of expansions.
A standard Calyx unit.
And it's in a little box, or a reasonably sized box. More recently, there is the Ultimate Edition, which is the master set plus 1 more small expansion, plus metal components. You don't need it. If you can get it at a reasonable price, filthy boots. But if you get the master set, it has everything in there. But essentially what it is, 51st State, you have your own faction. It is an asymmetric faction. So every faction in here, in the master set, there are 6 of them.
We're essentially in a Mad Max world.
Yeah.
Apocalyptic.
So we're in the Neuroshima universe, which is post-apocalyptic, Mad Max-esque world. And you start off the game with everyone picks their own unique faction. Every faction is slightly different. And the goal of the game is to basically build out these buildings into your state. Okay, so your Tableau, your engine is called your state. The types of cards that you build come in 3 flavors. There are production cards, which
they give you more stuff.
Every round they give you stuff. There are feature cards. Feature cards either allow you to park your stuff, so store them for later, and I'll come back to that. That's really important. Or they give you other one-off abilities. So they'll say
score points for every symbol of this that you have in your faction.
Yes, or they'll say things like, when you play this card, get 3 of these particular type of resources.
And
park it on the card.
Use them
you can use them as free, as however you like. The last one are actions. Actions allow you action cards. They give you, as you probably would realize, More actions. You start the game off with 4 basic actions. Every faction has 3 unique actions plus a common action. And what the game mostly is, it's about trading resources.
That's exactly what it is. Literally just get resources in, use said resources so you can use the action cards or build cards that get you victory points, because it's a race to 25 points.
That's right. And because of that, there are a ton of different resources. And I remember the first time I played it, someone said, so you've got bricks, guns, jerry cans, gears, which are called iron. Then you've also got protection tokens, build tokens, 4 different types of distance tokens. And I went, whoa, that's like way too much. I was shocked. After 1 round, I went, okay, I need that. And it's like, it just goes really, really quickly, and it sits really, really well.
It's very thematic in the way of how these all work, because each card, basically, you can use the card one of 3 ways.
Yeah.
You can build it for its action, its production, right? So whatever's in the gray area, you can use the first sort of token to build it for that.
Yeah.
Great. Or you can use the blue token to basically build it for its what it's called, its deal. And its deal just basically says, hey, this building will no longer be able to be destroyed by your enemy player, but once a turn, it's going to give you a special ability.
Yeah.
But you will be giving up something for that ability, such as I gave up a really good card that would allow me steal some of your abilities, but it gave me a wild every turn, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Or very thematically for this universe, you can go and raise the building or destroy it. Now, you can either destroy your own buildings or destroy your opponent's buildings. And if you do, you get one-time big bonuses, a lot of points, big resource tracks, big things, which good. So in your head, you are literally doing an efficiency puzzle whilst also trying to figure out, if I put this right down, will Damien destroy my church, because it's going to gain me points or whatnot. And this game really reminds me of Splendor. You said it about Star Tycoon, but this game has that. Well, if I grab that now, then I get this amount. I can grab that, and now I've got free buildings I can use towards that. And then I get a new production round every turn, which allows to give me the dudes, so then I can use those dudes to get the victory points, and then I can use those tokens to get me that blood. And literally, that's what this game is. It's like the Factorio thing of I need to get this to do that, to then I can do that to do this, which increases my efficiency over there, so I can get 2 points for 1 dude rather than 1 point for 1 dude in a thing.
So it's funny you mention that. So Factorio, for our listeners, is a video game which is basically
Make a factory.
It's make a factory, which then leads to making more factories, and you try and do this as efficiently as possible. The game, I don't think Factorio ever ends. It just keeps growing.
There is technically an ending, which is when you launch your first spaceship, but then there's more worlds.
It keeps going. So a buddy of mine who loves Factorio, I think he has mentioned it is his favorite game. This is his favorite board game.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all. Does not surprise me.
He loves 51st State. So the 51st State, so everything we've explained so far is pretty bog standard engine builder, and honestly, talking about the 3 rows, different types of cards in each row. Hey, that sounds like Wingspan.
But Damien, why do you have to be so efficient with your resources?
Because at the end of the round, your resources are gone. So
What do you mean gone?
when you pass, you lose
Everything you didn't use.
Everything you didn't use is
Gone.
and
Yeah.
you have to start again. The only thing you keep are the cards in your hand, and the cards in your hand cannot be traded for more resources. The only thing you can constantly trade is there is an inefficient trade action when you trade 2 workers for any 1 resource.
But those workers generally need to be used to be able to score the good victory points on your action cards.
That's right.
So you're giving up the option to potentially go and use those cards to get resources to do something else.
That's right. And then the last rub in this game, and I want to say we only played the base game. Some of the expansions that come in the game, and the expansions are just a small deck of cards that you shuffle in with the main deck.
Yep.
They do provide additional abilities, but the last thing in this game that it does give you is it gives you the ability to interact with your opponents. You can raise your opponent's buildings. If you see that your opponent is about to start making massive points on something or is milking a particular production card, you best go ahead and knock that card out.
In fact, it's encouraged.
It's heavily encouraged. Granted, and you will get bonuses for doing that. Your opponent can get a bonus from doing that as well.
I will say it's not actually the worst thing either. This game is actually really good about how. Yeah. So one mechanic we haven't talked about is the overbuild / upgrading ability, which is that each card has got a symbol on it, or either 1 or 2 symbols. And what you can either do on your turn is you can build it using the grey tokens we talked about before, or you can discard a card and then use its symbol to build another card from your hand, but you have to spend either a clay or a builder token to do that. Now, that is huge in a Tableau builder. And this is, I'm going to spoil my thing. This is probably is definitely in my top 3 Tableau builder games. I don't know where I rate it against Race for the Galaxy because I've played more Race for the Galaxy at the moment. But for me as well, I count 7 Wonders Duel as a Tableau builder.
Yeah.
And 7 Wonders Duel for me is absolutely an amazing 1 versus 1 game. Yeah. Whereas this is certainly up there with those 2 games. I will say it's in my top 3 with those 2.
I think my favorite thing about this game is that it does. So you only played a 25, and yes, you still have that natural ramp, or rather, you'll have set actions that you will do where you will set let's say for the last round or the last couple of rounds, you've got your action cards and you know what your process is going to be. Like for instance, when we were playing, my one was put a dude on here, get a wild resource. Use another dude in that wild resource to get 2 points.
Mine was the same thing.
Yeah.
It's like immediately spend one of these to get those resources, to then spend those resources to get this thing, so then I can start going heavy on those actions.
Yeah, and that's right. Yeah. But that is part of the natural arc of the game. You only hit that point at the end of the game.
Yeah.
It is really, really good. The goal of the game is to get past 25 points. Once someone gets past 25 points, that is the last round. You finish out the round. You then tally up how many cards everyone's got. Every card's worth 1 point, really easy. And that's it. And you go from there. You could argue that, yes, if someone is sitting on a bunch of 1 point cards, or 1 value cards, because whether it's a 3 value card or a 1 value card,
1 point.
You just build them for 1 point. But I don't really see that happening much because those 1 value cards are usually really good production cards and you want to get those out early. So what I'm saying is that it doesn't have the wingspan egg problem where in the last round, all you're doing is just laying eggs on all your birds because they're all worth 1 point each.
I will say that mechanic as well was one of the ones that took me a while to realize, I could build that way. I can actually, not only do I need to have so the other thing is when your abilities get raised, they technically become, there's no production anymore or any ability, but they are now a wild symbol for any other card in your hand. So you can go, crap, Damien destroyed my building, but at least I can get rid of that now. And by doing that and overbuilding, I get a point anyway just for doing it.
It's really good. Let's say you have a 1 value or a 1 distance is what it's called here, production building, and you're not really interested in that resource anymore. And you could basically say, okay, well, I'm going to overbuild on that. Or if it gets raised, even better. But then instead of you having to get 3 distance tokens, which can be tricky to get, all you need is 1 brick, and then you could overbuild, and away you go. That that ability to then just move cards out of your tableau
Yeah,
and
100%.
replace it, brilliant.
As
It's
soon
just
as I
so good.
realized what that actually meant was
Yeah.
because it solves the problem of this is essentially an efficiency game
Yeah.
at its core. And when you can't build the thing that you want to build, but you have to build the secondary thing, and you can feel bad. But my mind went after round 2. I went, oh, wait a minute, no, build the bad thing, because then I've got symbols I can use
That's
to
right.
replace the bad thing and grab a bonus
Yeah.
victory point at the time of building. And that's why I immediately went, this is what I wanted Star Tycoon to give me from the stock market. I wanted the ability to have these mad swings of like, I get this, I trade for that, that trades for that, now I get this, and we bang bang. And in a 2-player game of 51st State, we were going back and forth, and there were times where we didn't really mess with each other because we both were like, no, we're in a mad dash. And I will say, for the first 3 rounds of this game, I sat there going, I've got cogs.
Yeah.
And nothing that I have here allows me to use cogs. And I watched you go from, I was on 2 points and you went to 14 points.
Yeah.
Then the next round, you went to 21 points or 21 points and I was on 12. But the round after that, I caught you. All of a sudden, I just brought some things online. I went, oh, wait a minute. If I do this, I can use that. And now I've got stuff to use my cogs and I can use that. And I had this one turn where I went, and I caught you. And I'm like, oh, I'm actually not out of this game.
Yeah.
I actually, there are ways that you can utilize your resources.
The reason why that happened was that you were still producing. I had basically stopped producing. I was banking on my points at that point. So I was basically running my engine over and over and over. Had the game gone one more round, you would have beaten me.
Yeah.
Okay. I only did that because I've played this game.
Yeah, exactly right. And
I knew what point I needed to just run my engine.
I even got to that point where I'm like, this game's only got 2 more. Like, I know this is the second last round. I immediately went, this is the second last round.
Yeah.
I already can tell that because we're at this point of like, you were running, get things, get points. You're going to get a minimum of 5 points. It's going to be the last round, next round. That's fine. I'm going to be there as well. My goal now is to try and get as many points as I can. I end up losing by 8 points, right? Not too many. And it ended up becoming like, oh, okay. I end up seeing what, look, my engine was a bit inefficient. Great. But this game is what I really love from these, I said to Damo, I wouldn't say I wouldn't tell him what I thought of the game. At its core, this game reminds me so much of, in a weird way, it also reminds me of Gaia Project, the way that you're manipulating the market of like, I need to do this to get that thing. And
that's fair.
But its core efficiency puzzle scratches that. The teach was 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Yes, there are different resources, but once it clicks, it actually makes all perfect sense. And it's all super thematic as well, which I really liked. Look, I don't know if you can still get this game around the planet.
Oh, you can.
You can?
Yeah,
100%?
absolutely can.
You can still get it?
Absolutely can.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you get it, this literally, it could be one of my top 3 favorite Tableau builder games.
And the one thing I'll say was that, so it was the teach was about 15 minutes. Again, typically the teach will probably take about 20. Once again, guys, like, I've taught this game a bunch. I've played it a bunch. But the rule book is 6 pages. It's, again, there's not that many rules in the game. The rule book's quite funny as well. I recommend everyone to read it. They try and crack some jokes in there. It's quite funny how it's forced humor. But anyway, the game took us less than an hour.
Yep.
2 players.
45 minutes.
At 3 players, the time only increases by 15 minutes, maybe. I've played it once at 4. It was still fine. I think it's best at 2 or 3.
Mm-hmm.
But 4 is also fine.
There is a draft that we played as well.
Yeah, so there is. So every round you start off and you have an open draft.
And so that's pretty cool. So you get the idea of like, okay, I'm gonna, like, you can hate draft, but by hate drafting, you don't get anything bonus for it. Yeah. You can't use the card.
Yeah.
So there's a whole bunch of things. Look, I am going to put this out right there. I know you already recommend it, but yes, I'm going to give it, this is my thumbs up. This is a big recommendation from me. If you get a chance to play it, you definitely should play it. It is super fun. This kicks Wingspan's butt for me, just in the idea of like the fact that I can get rid of things, I can easily change stuff. If you like Wingspan, the theme is completely different, but the actual game itself has got a lot more asymmetry.
Yep.
It's not like an objective-based game. It's literally just a race game. It's, hey, can you build an engine and can you get it cranking? Go.
That's it. Yeah. And look, and I'll second all that. Like, if you if you liked Wingspan, you really like Tableau builders, and you're looking for something a little bit different,
This is perfect.
definitely recommend 51st State. Look, I know post-dystopian themes are not for everyone. Look, it's all over the art and the cards, things like that. If it's not for you, if that theme is not for you, I would still strongly say, look, try and look past it, because there is a really good game in here. However, if it is for you and you're looking for a light to midweight card game that you can play with kids, and I'll say from about
Teenager.
eight,
You can play with an 8-year-old, but
you
the
can
theme will
play with
probably
an
appeal
8-year-old,
to a
yeah.
teenager.
But certainly sort of like young teenagers and such, absolutely, it is an easy teach as well.
And if you don't want to teach it, don't worry. The box advertises the fact, hey, don't
Yeah.
worry, you don't need a rule book. Go to watch it play.
Rodney
Smith has got a good one.
Rodney's got a great video on that. But the last thing I'll say is that finally, in terms of Tableau builders, look, we've spoken about 51st State. We've spoken about Star Tycoon. We've absolutely spoken about Race for the Galaxy as well. The other one that I'll give a shout out to, we've spoken about it on the pod before. We haven't really given it the sort of review it deserves, and I do want to change that one day, is Res Arcana.
It is on my shelf. I bought it because I love playing that game so good.
So Res Arcana is also designed by the same designer who designed Race for the Galaxy. It is a slightly different take on it because there is a little bit of drafting. It's more, it's more you have your own set deck and you got to build a tableau based on your drafted cards. But I will say, and also it's more of a Dragons, like Dungeons and Dragons style.
Don't worry, we'll talk about it. Like, Res Arcana, I forgot that I should say Res Arcana, but yeah, for me, Res Arcana is slowly becoming, God, it's in my top 4 favorite tableau. It's like, it's so good.
Look,
I really love it.
The point I'm trying to make is that we are absolutely blessed with a number of really good tableau builders that are available on the market today. This is Damien recommending a game that is actually available in retail. And look, there are a bunch of them out there. Please go check them out. They are brilliant games. But 51st State is, I'm not going to lie, it's not my favorite. Race for the Galaxy will always be my favorite. But if anyone said...
Don't need to know that. It's a thumb up.
It's a thumb up.
There
But
you go,
if anyone said, do you want to play 51st State? I will be already at the table waiting.
It's great. Yeah. Woo. And with that, I think you're going to bring that to the end of tonight's episode. So,
awesome.
Wow, we are excited to be back. We are post B3GD, and we are very excited to bring you some more content in the future. We are actually all exhausted, but also weirdly completely re-energized to get more content out.
Such a good day.
We have our here in Australia, all of our sport is winter sport is wrapping up, which is great, which means that we're actually going to get some of our weeknights back again, and we'll hopefully get some more of that going out in the future. So, look, thank you very much for tuning in tonight's episode. If you enjoyed what you listened to, make sure you go and you listen on. We are on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, no longer Google Podcasts, RIP, because they are now going. But you can also find us on YouTube. So go to www.youtube.com and then go into the search bar and type @BG Gateway in the search bar. You'll find us. We're the first channel there. And then you'll see all of our previous episodes that we've talked about. You'll see our recaps. We are looking at trying to do some new content. We've talked about that in the past. It is coming. We just got to get, and by we I mean me, got to get off my button and edit a few of these things. But the podcast is it's not going anywhere. It's coming back even stronger. We're getting into that season where we're going to have to start readjusting our top 10s. And yeah, mate, there's going to be a lot of things like that. Anyway, so on behalf of myself and Damien, we'd like to thank you for listening to tonight's episode. We'll see you next week in episode 59. See you then.
Bye.